Welcome to Resolving Reality. My name is Emmett, the creator of the resolvingreality.com website and host of this podcast, Resolving Reality Radio. Resolving Reality is an independent Irish media platform that examines national and global issues, featuring opinions and topics not covered in the mainstream media, including the alternative, the politically incorrect, the undiscovered and the ignored. Check out the website for all our social media links and platforms, which you can find in the footer on each page. Follow us on Twitter at ResolvingOr, both capital Rs. Find us on YouTube, where you can listen to the podcasts, but also watch our video content. And don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. We are on Mixcloud, but if you prefer to listen to the podcast in higher quality WAV audio, click on the SoundCloud icon to visit the Resolving Reality SoundCloud profile, where you can download the episodes in high quality as well. Resolving Reality Radio is now on Stitcher and iTunes, plus check out our BitChute profile and you will find all those links right there on the website resolvingreality.com. This is Resolving Reality Radio. In this 8th episode, I discuss feminism with a Canadian YouTuber by the name of Judith Charpentier. We discuss the different waves of feminism and how earlier waves are different to the extreme variety we see today. We also discuss the connection between radical feminist ideology and Marxist ideology, the influence of post-modernism, and the much-regurgitated myths and propaganda of radical feminism, including toxic masculinity, patriarchy, rape culture, and male privilege. We outline how feminist propaganda is based on negative stereotypes of men and the impact that feminism has not only on males, but on society as a whole. You can find Judith Charpentier on YouTube, and her channel is called The Outsider's Perspective. Also follow her on Twitter at Judith Char. That's Judith with a capital J, UDITH _, then capital C, then HAR. Keep listening to Resolving Reality Radio. Judith, welcome to Resolving Reality Radio, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No worries, my pleasure. So yeah, it's really good to talk to you. And I found your YouTube channel and The Outsider's Perspective while I was looking for a guest to speak to about feminism. And the videos are excellent. They're very detailed, very passionate and honest. And, you examine feminist ideology very well. What was your motivation for creating the channel? And, why did you decide to put your thoughts about feminism, out in public on YouTube?
I just had a desire to speak about it, I guess. I've been dealing with feminism for years now on social media, and I figured it was about time for me to start speaking my own mind. It was more like a new experience I wanted to do, and it just like little interest I had in it. So I just told myself, well, I'm just gonna go ahead with it and just do it. Like, why not? And feminism is something I think about constantly. So, like, I'm far from being an expert about it, but I think I've gained some perspective.
So, what kind of feedback then do you get about the videos? What kind of responses do you get from people? Are they mostly, positive, mostly negative, or is it more balanced?
It's mostly positive. From my videos or my Twitter, it's overwhelmingly positive what I receive. And it's usually angry feminists who don't like what I say that just decide to, spread their anger on me and call me name and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been overwhelmingly positive.
It's good to hear, and it's a good time to be alive, when you want to say things, you can just go and create, so it's awesome. And you get feedback straight away, yeah. Well, just before we get into feminism itself and the background of it and all of that, let's look at Canada for a moment. I know you guys are struggling with the political correctness and all of, yeah, I bet you have. I'm sure you have. And I think all Western countries are very similar in that way. So is Ireland, so is Australia. And how bad have things been getting? Like, when did you notice that things were really starting to get crazy? Was there one particular thing that happened, or was it just a build-up of madness?
Well, I think in everyday lives, political correctness is not really that powerful. Like, we don't talk about it, or we just go on with our lives. We make it, well, with the people I hang out with, we usually just make jokes about it. I have gay friends, I have people like that probably really interested in the whole political correctness thing, but they just make jokes about it. Like even the people that it's supposed to be for don't even take that seriously. I mean, outside of universities or some parts of the medias, it's not really a subject that comes up a lot. But I'm also, if I was younger, like in my teens or my early 20s, if it would be like a subject of conversation between my friends and I would think that it is. People nowadays seems to be a lot more inclined towards social change and all that, but like everyday life, people don't really talk about it much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that, we know we're definitely going to come back to why that happens, or why that is the way it is later when we start to talk about indoctrination and universities and stuff like that. Yeah. And you know, one of the big things that happened in recent times, obviously that made me notice what was going on in Canada was obviously what happened with Jordan Peterson. So you know, I know some of the details here, but remind me, it was over the gender pronoun drama, wasn't it? Something like that.
Exactly. It was, the whole debacle about it, why he got so much hate for it, because his position about the Bill C-16 for him, it was a matter of freedom of speech, because this piece of legislation is unprecedented in, I think, in the Commonwealth in general. Like, the government never made a piece of legislation that tell its people what words they can or cannot use. So that's what he got upset over. Not the whole, you know, trans issue was apart from that. That's what he was concerned about. And he was concerned about that because he spent his career educating people on both the right and the left and where the extremes lead. And he noticed that speech helps the oppressor, never the oppressed in the long run. So you don't want your government to tell you what words you can or cannot use. It's absolutely, it's despicable for them to, it's an overreach of power. That's the way I see it, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is, for those of us who understand how totalitarianism works, it's quite obvious what the real agenda is. So, like, how bad is it over there now? Like, if you know, if we're having a conversation in the street in Canada and I say to you, look, you know, I'm not a man or a woman, you need to call me like a unicorn fairy. And if you don't respect my rights, will you get like thrown into the gulag, or is there any sort of consequences for doing that right now?
So far, I've never seen anything in the news about actually taking this piece of legislation to prosecute people. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's that useful or they just made it into law to appease the push by feminist organization, or what did they do with that? But I would like to see, like, if they would actually prosecute someone who refused to call a trans man a man. That would be interesting to see, actually, because, like I said again, it's an overreach of power. Like that's the thing. Like, I can have a conversation with you and call you the most vile, evil thing ever, like a dumb cunt and whatever. Like, but fine, to me as a woman, and I refuse to do so, I'm in breach of federal law, and I could be prosecuted for that. Where's the fucking logic in that? There's no logic. Absolutely none. It was to appease feminist organization by pushing feminist ideology into law. That's what it was all about, the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, it is crazy. Like, you think, do the politicians in government not have anything else better to do?
Yeah. Oh, not the Trudeau government, no.
That sums it all up. When you have a feminist teenage girl disguised as a man in charge of the country, well then, you know, that explains everything. But, you know, well, to get into feminism, and I mean, I know in preparation for the interview, I did a quick little study on feminism in Canada. I didn't complete it, but, you know, from what I can see, it seems to have had the same general development as feminism in other countries. And I suppose we should start off by looking at the idea, you know, before we move on to neo-feminism, we could start with classical feminism. You know, do you think that maybe early feminism had some sort of merit, like there were good things about it in the beginning, you know, right to vote and work and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. Like in many ways, I'm a classic feminist, like second wave feminist. I believe that women are people and we should have the right to vote and have any sort of rights that men have, which we do in Canada. And I think every Western country there is, women have the same rights that men have. And of course, and at the time, if you look at first wave feminism in 19th century, like men had right that women didn't have. And I think the way they looked at it was wrong. Like in Canada, until the late 20s, women weren't considered person. So they couldn't run for certain political job because they weren't technically person under law. I mean, that's appalling, especially when you consider that there is no good reason like why women were excluded from political, you know, offices and jobs and all that. Absolutely no good reason. Like it was mostly just due to, you know, a gender division of society was pretty strict. And women at their jobs, men at their jobs, but then women decided, hey, you know, we want a little bit more. And and that's the funny thing. Like women decided they wanted more, they fought for it, and they got it. And then people are still upset nowadays over it. Like, but yeah, to go back to the point, yeah, certainly we weren't considered person. There's a lot of things we couldn't have. We couldn't, like, even at the time, when a man and a woman married with divorce, usually the child would be given to the man because he was considered the one to be able to provide. And eventually... Yes. So to make a little parenthesis there, if you ever get into an argument and they tell you that, you know, divorce court is just misogynistic because they say that women are better carer, and that's just relic from an ancient time where people believe women are better carer. Like, no, that's bullshit, because it's a woman who promoted this idea that children, especially under the age of 4, should be given to the mother, because it was early care or something like that. They called it. Like she came up with this theory that young children needed their mother more than their father. So that's when it changed, and then that's why it's still impacted in family court today, that usually the child is given to the parent because we consider mothers to be better carer, but that's not. But yeah, there's a lot of rights we didn't have, which made no logical sense that we didn't have as human being, and they fought for it, and it got better. And yeah, first wave feminism did a lot of things good.
Yeah, I agree, and you know that's the thing as well. And of course I'd agree. You know, anyone sane agrees that all human beings should have these, you know, these basic sort of rights. And then of course when things start to move forward, and now we can maybe skip forward in time slightly to, you know, the activism in the 60s and the 70s, and everything start becoming, you know, very student activism, and you had the following wave of feminism kind of coming through in the last few decades. Then feminism kind of morphed into something else, you know. Like it was a good thing, and then it starts to become almost like too much. Now it's like we need to prioritize women at the expense of men. And then it starts becoming more, you know, hypocritical almost, you know, where it's supposed to be, you know, we need to be treated fairly, but yet the other side is deliberately being ignored, and it just becomes imbalanced.
Yeah, there's a refusal to see what the consequences of your action do to other people. And they don't, it shows, it's one of the points where it shows that they don't really care about men. They just care about women, because if they do something, they implement a policy or a law that benefit women, but it's bad for a man, they won't say, oh, maybe we just need to adjust things so it's fair. No, it's always about what do women need? We need more rights, we need more power, and that's the end of it. The feminism nowadays is just a political movement for more power for women as a group of people. That's how it started. and it should have been done away a long time ago. Like, I'm an egalitarian, and I think like we should move away from feminism because it's become too regressive. If we want to move forward with more equality, which is a very good concept, we need to do away with feminism. It's dragging us all down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. And I suppose then, if we could try to categorize, you know, the neo-Marxist kind of side of it, the neo-feminist side of it. Sorry, if we could kind of categorize that nowadays. So, you know, if you were explaining it to me what neo-feminists are and what they believe in, what would you say? How would you categorize their basic belief system here?
Well, honestly, I'm not sure what you mean by neo-feminists, because there's so many different types of feminism. So do you mean like the fourth wave feminism, or?
Yeah, I suppose the newest wave, the more radical aspect of feminism, I suppose, overall.
Well, if we talk like fourth wave feminism is the rise of social media, and now feminism has adapted to it. But yeah, there's a lot of radicalism in feminism, which I'll never understand why anyone would give a radical so much power and such a great voice. Like, we should never listen so much to anyone who's a radical in anything. Their views are always going to be extreme, and they're not going to listen to moderate people or be common or have any sorts of common sense. But that's just me. But
yeah.
I think like modern feminism changed a lot with I think it's the third wave of feminism, which started in the 90s. And that's where intersectionality began, really, because you take Marxism and then you realize that, well, society is divided into two. Men have all the power, women have no power. So it's a gender class struggle between those two. Yeah, but then you go beyond that. Okay, my experience as a woman are specific. They're different than the experience of a man. Oh yeah, but my experience as a black gay woman is going to be different than your white feminism is going to be. So you need to address the specificity of my experience. And it's become, neo-feminism has become a lot selfish, self-centered. It promotes, I think, the worst qualities in people. Like it's really self-serving and arrogant. It's about me. There's a group of people here in my part of French Canada, and they make these public videos, which is hilarious because they're a publicly funded organization that bitch about like society and how sexist it is toward women. You're funded by the government. What the hell are you talking about? And they make they made one video about trans people and the way we should address them and all that. And oh my God, and I don't mean generally speaking, but some of those self-identified non-gender binary and trans people who are more like politically motivated, it's all about them. It's me all the freaking time. Like, how much of a narcissist are you to think that everything is about you? It's like, quiet down a bit. It's not just you in the world. It's also everybody else who's got to live with you there.
Yeah. And, you know, as well for the listeners, for people who don't really understand the Marxist connection and the neo-Marxist aspect to it, for the listeners, basically, you know, Marxism was about the bourgeoisie being the oppressor class and a proletariat being the oppressed class. So after all the Marxist regimes and politics and stuff over the years, when they realized, look, Marxism doesn't work, you know, they didn't give up. They just changed their brand slightly. So feminism is it's a new brand of the same thing, isn't it? On one class you've got the oppressors, the other class you got the oppressed victims, and therefore the victims deserve special treatment now, and that's all it is, debate over, kind of.
Yeah, that's the difference with when they adopted Marxism into feminism. Before that, it was your first wave feminism, which we just discussed, really good things that they did. Even second wave feminism was more about women in the workplace and reproductive rights, where men still have more rights than women have. There were still social injustice like pay inequalities and all that, which is, they really work at issues that were obvious and
they needed to be fixed.
Exactly. They needed to be fixed. They worked at it. They fixed them. But now we're just nitpicking at little tiny things that don't even fucking matter in the long run. And the Marxism and all that, it absolutely doesn't help anything.
Before we get into some of the classic, parts of the ideology like the patriarchy and stuff like that, let's quickly look at it's a big subject, but we'll have to be brief. The effect of postmodernism, right? Which is kind of, from my understanding of it, it's the idea that reality isn't objective. I think it's subjective. You can kind of make up your own reality. So when you take the feminism, the latest wave of it, and you mix it in with Marxism, and you mix it in with postmodernism, and you mix that up in a big pot, for dinner. Yeah. That's why you've got these people, the radical ones, who they think that they're right and their version of reality is correct. They think they're oppressed, and they're very highly motivated, and then it just leads to chaos, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. They think their version of reality is the only right one, and they think that because they're very arrogant about it. It's what Peterson said about people who likes Marxism so much and socialism. Like, socialism and Marxism doesn't work. Every time it's been implemented, it's become a failure. Mm-hmm. You wind up with Stalin and what he did in Russia.
Yeah.
But people nowadays think that, if I were to make my communist state, it would turn into a communist utopia where equality would reign because I'm such a good person and I wouldn't fuck it up like Stalin did. And that's imbued with so much self-serving arrogance. Like, yeah, that's just what it is. And that's how I got to learn everything I know about feminism. It's that by observing feminists and how they behave. And that's how they behave. Why do they behave like that? Well, that's just arrogance. Yeah. That's self-serving arrogance. That's what it is. It's thinking that you're so goddamn important that everything should be about you. No, absolutely not. That's the difference. Like your definition is of a postmodernism is really, really good, because I think as the essence of it, it's the value of subjectivity over objectivity. Mm. And like my subjective truth is what's more important. No, it's important to you, and it should be important to you. But you have to understand, everybody else is not going to love you as much as you love you, and you have to respect that. But no, they want to impose what they believe in and support on others, and that's where I have a problem with. Like, if you want to be referred to as any pronoun, fine. But you cannot actually, that's the thing. That's my workaround around this law here in Canada. Mm. Is you can by the law force me to use certain pronouns, but I can't stay gender neutral. I can use the pronoun they, which apparently is supposed to be gender neutral, or at least they're forcing it to be a gender neutral pronoun. So I don't have to refer to you as either man or woman. I'll just refer to you with a gender neutral pronoun, and there you go. Everybody's happy. Mm-hmm. Find workaround. Don't let them win. No, you stand up to that kind of behavior. You don't just bend down and let them win. No,
you don't really want to give them too much space, because then you start having these really fucked up English sentences. If you're going to start calling people they, then those, they, them, this, that, it starts it could really lead to absolute chaos there in the English language. And another thing as well, All right, so let's examine the patriarchy idea. I know you made some great points on this in the videos, but for the listeners, kind of let's go over them a little bit, right? So they're based on the ideas of hierarchy and oppression, of course. So, like, what does the radical feminist theory say about the patriarchy?
It's a oppressive system that's everywhere, and it controls your life. If you're a woman or a minority or not, a white straight cis men, it's domineering. It's everywhere. You have to be politically motivated every day to fight it. Otherwise, you'll let it win. It's like the boogeyman. That's how they see it. It's the boogeyman that's there to get you. It's paranoia. There's too much paranoia in there. I don't quite support that at all. But that's what it is, the boogeyman.
Yeah, and I mean it's based on the idea that also it comes from the idea that hierarchies are bad. Yeah. And you made the point in your videos that, well, no, not really, because without hierarchies, like you mentioned about sports teams, I think it was hockey or something you mentioned, and it's like without hierarchies at all, nothing operates. You wouldn't be able to get on a train or get on a bus, or you wouldn't be able to go to a supermarket or anything like that, or anything that works in the real world without some sort of a system. And to look at all hierarchies as being oppressive regimes is just not accurate.
And the funny part is that if you look at those, any peace or feminist organization, they organize themselves in hierarchies. It's not everyone that has the same position within that organization. There's probably a leader in there. There's someone that decide, okay, what are we doing this week? And you should be doing that. You should be doing that. They're natural, and they probably operate under hierarchies too. But they feel more probably free in their hierarchies because they consulted everybody else and to try to be more egalitarian in their approach, not to hurt anybody's feeling or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose that's the sexism of the radical feminists coming out, because if they're in organizations where women are running them, then they don't have any problems with a hierarchy. Yeah. But if it's men in a hierarchy, all of a sudden, this is bad. They want to take over the world and commit genocide, because they're white men. It's just the sexist thing kicking in again that distorts their perception of reality almost.
Yeah, exactly. And like the way they look at it is the world used to be dominated by men. Like if you take first wave feminism and all that, men rule. But now they say women should rule. The future is female. It's like, okay, first, when men rule, they weren't all like, okay, let's oppress the women. We're so much superior to them. Like, it's all about men being men and them being second class. Like, we'll teach those women. It wasn't at all like that. Like, most of it was just a lack of understanding in science and biology. Like, up till the 60s, they said, like, women can't run marathon, their uterus is going to fall out. Like, no, we've understood a lot of things since then because of science.
Yeah,
that eliminated a lot of like sexism we used to have. So they didn't do it on purpose to be mean. I mean, sure, a minority of them did. There's always going to be sexism and racism. But nowadays, women take the same approach, but they go full on with this idea that we need to like oppress the men. We need to put them behind us. We need to rule as women and create matriarchies. And like, no, you're literally becoming the person you hate, but you're doing it. So it's fine when you do it. But when somebody else that you hate is doing it, that's when it's a problem. Yeah, sure it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, double standards.
That's the hypocrisy. Yeah, double standards, hypocrisy. It's all like do what I say, not what I do. It's not a high standard of living, and I don't support that at all.
Yeah. And then the next one, then another one we hear quite a lot is the idea of toxic masculinity. And I'm sure you're aware that the Gillette ad that was out recently, and I'm happy to see it being absolutely destroyed on YouTube. People abusing the ad, abusing Gillette. I even saw some videos of a guy smashing Gillette razors with a baseball bat, which was hilarious. Like, it was his protest. And so it's, it's really in your face, this thing.
Oh, yeah.
and they're promoting this toxic masculinity idea. So, like, so what you explain to me, what are they trying to say when they say toxic masculinity? What are they trying to? What's the point here when they say this?
Well, certain masculine behavior are problematic to women. That's basically like the crux of it. Like, saying like when boys roughhouse and you just say, oh, they're just boys being boys, like, or like locker room talk, like guys just speaking about boobs and women and objectifying them. That's not nice to do. And making rape jokes and stuff like that, that's not nice either. Like the concept, like toxic masculinity can be a lot of things to many people, but overall it's like behavior that women see in men that they don't like and they think that it should be better, which was the whole message that Gillette tried to send. Like, you should be better. Like, yeah, sure, fair enough. But why are you just saying that to men? Are you saying women are already good and men need to pick it up? Like,
right.
To do the same sort of ad towards women to tell them not to be such, promiscuous being who abort their babies all the time, and use men for financial gains and status and all that.
Yeah.
Why just men? Why is it men that are doing so terrible that you need to lecture them, patronize them into changing? Like, they do a lot of good things too. Like, it's a minority of men that do bad thing, and it's a majority of guys who are just every day just doing their thing and supporting their family and going to work. But not to feminists. To feminists, like, it's, they promote rape culture and they prevent us from going to work and holding the positions we want to have. Like, it's like the patriarchy. Like, it's groups of men telling women what they should be doing, and say absolutely not. Like, what evidence do you have? And usually they'll nitpick at tiny little details that support their ideologies, and they'll completely ignore anything that does not support their ideologies. They're completely flawed in their perspective, only see what they want to see and ignore everything else. That's why I made another video about like the anti-intellectual nature of feminism. You don't have great thinker in that movement. Like, I mean, you have this intellectual dark web, like right now with your Eric Weinstein, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and they're all like really smart guys, like university professor and all that. And what does feminism have? Elyssa Milano bitching on Twitter, like Kathy Griffin? Is that what you have?
Yeah, it really says there's, well, yeah, because, and what the point I'm going to make now ties in with that, because what the radical feminists are doing is that they're judging a whole group based on the behavior of a very small percentage of people within that group. So, imagine if 1% of all of, not 1%, 0.1% of all the men in the world are rapists, like a very, very small percentage. They're going to say, oh, all men are potential rapists now, and we need to start educating, boys in school not to rape girls,
I hate this argument.
Crazy stuff.
If a guy wants to rape you, it's because he's a bad person. He's morally flawed, he's entitled, and he has control issues.
Exactly.
It's not because, like, he has a penis. A penis is not, like, a definition of what a rapist is. Like, it needs more. Like, it's so...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's so sexist and unfair, but they don't see that because it helps them. It helps women to see men as being bad people, because then they'll know they have to protect themselves. If I made a tweet about it, I was pretty proud of, like, they support sexism. They flat out support sexism and promote it as a political concept that's needed to change things. It's what the KKK used to do 100 years ago when they were huge in the United States and they had political backing and so much money, and they made parades in the street and they saw themselves as the defensor of white purity. They were good people trying to better their society, and that's exactly what feminism is doing now. They're using the same hate tactics, but they think, no, it's for our own political gain, and it's important that we do so because we're oppressed. Like, no, you're not. If you're able to have the medias at large support your cause, you're not oppressed. Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's a great point. I saw that tweet, and that's how crazy things have gotten, because it's the same in Ireland. We have the feminist movements here. We're trying to get the justice system to change how it processes, people in the court of law, because there was a rape case in Northern Ireland, and the feminist movements here are trying to get the justice system to change due process, Yeah. So basically a woman can accuse a guy of rape, and maybe she won't even have to be in court because it's going to be too traumatic for her. But the point was made, hang on a moment, it's like before, if you accuse someone of a crime, you both have to go to court. You got the plaintiff and the defendant, and it has to be equal, and you have to prove your case. But so yeah, we have that here where the feminist movement's just getting really, really powerful, and whenever they click their fingers, the government jumps. It's like they're slaves to the agenda, but yet they're claiming that they are oppressed. Yeah. So it's backwards.
Yeah. They appeal to human better nature, to want to help and support those who have less. And you saw that in the old Gillette ad, like, man, you can be better. And then men, well, I want to be better, so I'm going to do everything you tell me to do because I want to be a good person. They're abusing power and authority that they have over people, and you can only abuse authority when you have it, when you have power to do so.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes more and more obvious the more powerful they get. That it's amazing that people still think that some are oppressed. And of course, women today, I'm not saying everything is perfect now, but like we already talked about, there was a need for classical feminism and the earlier waves to fix things and make them balanced. But now it's harder to see why there's such a need for it and at all. Never mind the fact that feminism seems to be going over the top now. The radical element is now, because in Ireland we still have problems with high suicide rates among boys, and males in general, and they're being neglected. But the education system is now favouring women. There's more women teachers, and the boys are becoming kind of neglected now, and the state is siding with the women. So it's going too far now, and there doesn't seem to be as much of a need for it. And it's a very different thing to what it used to be, put it that way. Yeah,
there need to be an end game. There need to be, okay, we want more equality. Okay, well, define what equality means to you. It means this, and that. Okay, so when we'll have this, and that into law, will you be satisfied? Yeah. That's what we need to have now, an end game. Like, you need to point at what you want, and then when you get it, you shut the fuck up now. Like, you got everything you wanted. Yeah. But no, they always find things where they're not happy with, in which we have to change societies and policies and law so that things can be easier and better for women only. It's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And another topic is the whole, domestic violence thing. And in my first interview with the Resolving Reality brand, I interviewed a guy called David Walsh here in Ireland, who's the head of an organisation called Men's Voices Ireland. And it was an interesting interview. We're talking about men's rights and men's issues. And of course, we had to talk about feminism because it's, changing the dynamic of how things happen here. And he talked about this report that came out in Ireland a few years ago. It was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, about the domestic violence issue. And the results of it showed, because the feminists will always say domestic violence is pretty much men oppressing women, beating up women. But the facts show that the violence happens at, male to female at comparable rates. Yeah. It's equal. And actually, one of the groups that apparently committed domestic violence with the highest were actually lesbian women. Yeah. And of course, you will not get the progressive governments, letting that one out. It's obvious why, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh no, they will never admit. Nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. But yeah, the numbers are pretty much the same here in Canada. It's pretty much 50-50. Lesbian couple are the highest violence, and it's easy to understand why this is happening. Like men. Since I've been young, men have been told that, hey, don't hit women. Violence against women is wrong. But we never hear that same discourse. Women hear the contrary. Oh my God, you hit him? What did he do to deserve it? Like, did he cheat on you? Like, it's his fault if you hit him. And you see feminists promote this idea pretty constantly too. It's never me who did something wrong. It's the man who provoked me. So it's okay. I'm defending myself. Absolutely not. This goes against the concept of equality. Absolutely, like you're treating two gender differently. You're judging one guilty even though both of them are. That's so unfair. That's not equality at all. You're promoting inequality here, especially like it's 50-50, those numbers. So why you just concern yourself with women? And that's where you see really what they think of men, as men being undeserving of the same kind of empathy they show women. And like one reason I'm not a feminist is that because I support the concept of equality, they do not. They promote the concept of feminism, which is like a rebranding of the timeless concept of equality, but it's not the same. It's like we need equality for women. Like everywhere we see men doing things, we want women to be doing things the same way. It's okay, fair enough, but that's not what equality is. Yeah, those statistics are really telling of what the mentality of both men and women are in society. And men, like if men are so dominating in society, how come they're killing themselves so much? How come they're feeling so disenfranchised?
Yeah, that's I suppose with the media has a big effect as well, and academia, of course, because they keep focusing on a certain narrative. So if they keep focusing on the narrative that women are oppressed, like you say, they'll just ignore things that don't fit into the ideology. Yeah. So, the suicide rates in Ireland for males has always been a big problem. Now I think, it's probably worse now because the more powerful feminism gets, the more of an effect it has on younger people and everybody, but also the younger generations, and I had this experience in college a while ago, where you have these 18, 19-year-old girls walking around talking about the patriarchy and how oppressed they are, while guys are opening doors for them, but it's okay to abuse guys because they're guys. Yeah. And especially young men as well, they might not be mature enough or intelligent enough to understand what's happening to them. And they're dealing with these young women who are ideologically programmed, basically, and it's going to affect their mental health, and it just makes things worse for everybody.
Yeah, so many men don't realize this is happening. Like we talked earlier, like I get a lot of support, and oh my God, I'd venture to say like 99% of the support I have is from men, and just men thanking me, like, thank you so much for saying the thing that you do, because when I do it, I'm just being insulted and put down and being told to shut up. And that's, and oh my God, like, why do women let that happen? Because they don't care. They want just power. They're not like they don't want equality. They want power. And they don't realize that, like you said, like those little tiny 18-year-old and teenagers and like that, they're just being told how to think, and they like feminism because it gives them so much power over everything, and it gives them like the ability to put down anyone who question this power. Like anybody who stands up to feminism is insulted.
Yeah,
I'm being called everything. Like today, an MRA. Like you're an MRA. Like I support men, but I'm not an MRA. Or you're white conservatives. You're a Nazi. You're racist. You're sexist. I'm being called a misogynist a lot because I'm trying to hold women to a higher standard. And apparently, you can't do that. You can't tell women, you're supposed to be responsible.
Yeah.
No, women should be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and not being judged for it. If you judge them, you're misogynistic. Like, what kind of logic is there?
Yeah.
And men, like, I like to consider it like it's social harassment, like on a social scale. Men are stuck in a catch-22. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And a good example for it, like you mentioned, is like holding the door for someone.
Yeah.
Some feminists will tell men, hold the door for a woman when she comes in. It's respectful. It's good manner. Show her that she's worth it. And then other feminists will tell the same man, don't hold door for women. We're able to hold our own door. What are you telling us we can't hold door because we're women? And men are constantly being told two different things depending on what feminists want to teach them. And like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
What do you do when you're oppressed all the time? What do you do when you're falsely accused of something you've never done and everybody is on this side of the person who's lying? You wind up killing yourself. No matter what you do, you can't win. Like, it must be so terribly frustrating. Like, I feel bad for men nowadays, what they go through. Like, they're in some ways, they are way more oppressed, like at least socially oppressed, than women are.
Yeah, and well, we're kind of getting into the heart of it now. Like, I think feminism, really, when you analyze it, it's something that is kind of built to kind of attract certain types of women.
Yeah.
And what it does is it kind of uses the ego. Because, everybody has an ego. And, my personal opinion is that I judge people as individuals on their behavior, on their personality. And, and if someone has an ego, if a girl has an ego and she hears about feminism, it fits her ego because she doesn't have to change. If ever there's a mistake, she's people will always side with her over a guy. The table isn't even, and it kind of, the ego comes into play, and it just basically it kind of makes people into spoiled brats. Yeah. Because they can just get what they want and they don't have to mature or take responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah, men are being told by a razor company, you need to be better, you need to change and adapt, you need to be better. Women, you're fine just the way you are, you're a perfect little queen, don't ever change, let your individuality shine. And like, hey, you're a queen, and no, like, you're a flawed human being too.
Yeah,
you can change too. There's a lot of things that women could do better instead of just being angry harpies all the time. Like, they feed it. Like you said, like, it's all ego. It's what they appeal to it. But I've seen a lot of women, like you were toward feminism, a lot of women suffered some kind of abuse or discrimination in some way. Like, it's more common with American women. I see there's a more disconnect between both genders. In Canada, we're pretty egalitarian, especially here in Quebec. Like, we've been told since I was young, and I'm in my late 30s, like, women can do whatever they want. It was my mom's generation. Jobs were pretty restricted to what a woman, it was socially acceptable for a woman to do. But my generation, you can do anything you want, no problem, nothing's holding you back. But American women don't hear that a lot. There's a lot more of a gender divide, and it's usually due to religious conservatism. Like, women need to stay in the home, and women needs to wait till marriage to have sex. They need to be virgins and all that, but yeah, there was a lot of it attracts people who've been abused in some way. And I mean abuse, like, it could have an annoying stepfather who was a bit controlling, like, don't wear that if you go out or you look like a slut. It might just be like tiny little comments like that, and then they go toward, they hear this feminism, they go toward it, and they learn that the patriarchy, that men are controlling and ruling their life. And then she thinks of her stepfather and his comments, and they're like, oh my God, like, my mind just been blown. I've been open to this world where I'm oppressed and men are controlling me, and it's so unfair, and we need to do something about it. But they never look at the other perspective of things. Are you really oppressed? Like, can you find reason why you're not oppressed? I mean, one of the biggest one is you have the same rights that men do. Like, I was attacked today on Twitter by a very a pro-feminist who was really popular, not to name names, but his idea is like, Canada is not egalitarian. There's only been one female prime minister. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know that we judge the egalitarianism of a country by the amount of female prime minister they had. I thought like the amount, like the fact that women have the same rights as men counted for something, but apparently no, I was misguided in that. But yeah.
To move into I'm just thinking of the time as well. To move into the, the whole the rape culture catchphrase, because as I'm sure you're aware from because I know you understand how these things operate, that catchphrases can become part of the pop culture. So if you have these ideologies that the state or academia wants to promote, like radical feminism, they usually have ways of marketing it. And I think one of the good phrases they used was rape culture. It's been used a lot, and I suppose it means that it basically implies that every man is a potential rapist. But I mean, what would you say is the definition of this? What do they mean when they say rape culture?
Well, when they say rape culture, it means that our culture promotes and encourages rape, basically. And they use the flimsiest of evidence to support this claim. Like, we make jokes about rapes. It means we don't take it seriously. We make jokes of it, like I was saying, like locker room talk, like guys talking bad about women or sexualizing them too much, guys thinking that they just can grab women at a club or something like that. They use the tiniest, flimsiest of evidence to support this thing, and they completely forget that rape is a crime. People are prosecuted for it. People are sent to jail for it. People don't have a good opinion of rape. Like, I don't see someone...
Yeah, it's a pretty serious thing, yeah.
Yeah, you don't see a media outlet saying, well, this guy was arrested for rape, but, it's not a big deal.
I just thought something on that. This is my personal view. I think I should just put that on the table first. I think that any man who is a rapist, not a potential rapist, not an alleged rapist, an actual rapist, is a man like that is a piece of shit,
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to stick him in prison myself, that's my attitude. And but and I think that a man who is like that is nothing at all alike to a normal everyday guy. He's got nothing in common except the fact that they are male. And on top of that, I would say that I think, rape is a horrible crime. I would be happy to, stick that guy in prison myself. But what's equally horrible is women making false rape allegations. That's equally horrible, because men have killed themselves over it. It can ruin their family and their life, their professional life, and that would be a form of equality. So that's my take on it. But also as well with the whole rape culture thing, I don't like that phrase. I think that's propaganda, because it's just a small percentage of men who actually are rapists. But if you switch on the news, they make it seem like there's rapists around every corner.
Yeah,
exactly. It's exaggeration.
I grew up I grew up a feminist because it's like more or less a social norm, and I was scared. I was the kind of woman who was scared to go out, scared to interact with men, thought they were dangerous. And the more I interacted with them, they're just average Joes, like my father or my brother. They're not rapists. And there's a tiny minority of them who are, but absolutely not. Like, it's such lies. And that's one thing that made me distance myself from feminism. So many propagandas and lies, flat out lies, and just to support their ideologies and their beliefs. They want to believe that men are a problem, so men are rapists, men are dominating, like there's a patriarchy and all that. And no, you need to look at all the perspective, not just the one that benefit you. It's more than just you.
Yeah, exactly. There's another part is not really a catchphrase, but I've actually heard women, again, some young women in college, just repeating feminist propaganda, talking about, we don't need men in society. We could survive without men. Now, here's what I think. I've never ever said that men could survive without women. I've never said that, but I've heard feminists saying they could survive without men. Now, and my overall view is I don't think men and women are supposed to be in competition. We're supposed to be complementary. You know, we're supposed to work together and be good at different things. But I have to say, my background, like professionally over the years in different jobs, I've done a lot of construction jobs, a lot of physical jobs. And there's a lot of things that men do for society that feminists will never acknowledge, you know, like, you know, running the infrastructure, building the bridges, the roads, you know, shipping, car mechanics, electricians and everything. And when I hear feminists saying they could survive without men, I'm like, okay, please, you know, the next time you, and see, they wouldn't understand this. They would think, oh, you're being an oppressive man and, you know, you're just good at using power tools. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty good skill to have, you know, like trying to say that men are just bad, they're only rapists or they're only, you know, misogynists, they're only oppressors. I'm like, people who talk that way, they're not appreciating all the unique jobs that men do and things that they do, you know, that women don't do or don't want to do or whatever. And it's just, they're just focusing on the most negative men in society, like rapists, exaggerating that and ignoring all of the positive roles that men play in society.
Yeah, you can see the sexism towards men very well. They don't appreciate men and what they do at all. They only look at the negative. Like if like what you said, like I've never heard either a man say, "Oh, we should just live amongst men. Just get rid of the women. It would be such a better world." And no, men don't say that because most of them are heterosexual and most of them like women. They want to have women in their lives. They like them. Like, ooh, such like shocker, like news here. Like, but talk to women and they won't say that. I've seen even women supported like pseudo-scientific journals saying like there's no such thing as straight people. They're just like spectrums of gays. And I was like, oh yeah, I've had to defend my straightness to lesbians once because they were attacking me for saying you're not straight, it doesn't exist, you're just really gay, but you won't admit it. Like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm straight. Like,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's becoming
it's crazy.
Like, it's a complete and I think it's based on a lot. Well, you're a lesbian feminism, you're angry lesbian from the 60s and 70s. I think that's where it comes from. So complete rejection, well, of men. Like, well, yeah, if you're a lesbian, you're probably not going to think about men a whole lot, and you realize you can have a perfectly happy life without them. And I think this idea has been politicized and put into feminism. It's like, no, we need each other. I think the reasons are pretty obvious why, but
obvious to you, yeah.
Like, do I need to spell this out for you? Like,
yeah, exactly. But this ties into what you were saying when you're dealing with people who have the postmodernist thing in their brains where they make up their own version of reality. That's why, you know, people who are not very intelligent and they're spoiled and they buy into these ideologies. So like a lesbian woman who has that kind of personality thinks, oh, you know, I would love it if all women are lesbians because that suits me personally. So, you know, so every straight woman is really a lesbian on the inside and I just need to convince her because that's what's good for me. This is the postmodern spoiled brat thing in the extreme. That's what it is.
Exactly. And it reminded me like when a show in the 90s called The Outer Limits. And it was kind of like The Twilight Zone, which every episode addressed a different story. And there was a story where they were in the future. It was a matriarchal society. They got rid of all the men and they just kept the sperm that they needed to reproduce. And then they decided to unfreeze a man to have them live in society with them. And what did happen? Oh, war broke out, because that's what happened when you have men to a society. They always just want to go to war with each other, and I believe that at the time. Like, I'm almost ashamed to say it, but like, yeah, and you still see this mentality nowadays. And I like the little trivia fact that came out, like queens throughout history, like in England and all that, they wage more wars than kings do.
Yeah.
So this argument that like women are less violent than men. Like, have you ever seen two girls fight? Like,
yeah,
we have a name for it, like a cat fight. Like, women fight all the time. They're really mean to each other. So why do you think they wouldn't wage wars or fight each other or murder each other?
Yeah, exactly.
I like to just, like, yeah, matriarchal society, just like you were saying, like all the tough job, like no women would want to do them. Like society, a matriarchal society would collapse at the first instant, like a sewer blocks, and then society collapses because no woman wants to have to go down to that sewer to fix things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's how, like, I was going to say, who made that movie, Gillette? Maybe they made it, but I was just thinking that's how radical feminists see men. They think that men. I've actually heard a girl. With my own very own ears, I heard a young girl say this in college. Eventually we'll have a society without men, and we can use other forms of reproduction. And I laughed because I thought that's hilarious. That's how some radical feminists see men. They only see them as these like walking sperm donors. Yeah. But that comes from the mentality of someone like who doesn't appreciate all the things that men do. And me, because of the work I've done and the things I've done over the years, I'm like, without the masculinity of men, the good side of masculinity, being able to do physical jobs, being a little bit competitive maybe, using your strength and all the things that men kind of contribute. Without that component, society wouldn't physically run. You wouldn't have electricity, running water, and all the utilities, because those jobs, some of them, they involve physical strength, they involve things that men, happen to be better at.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're better people, but things like, your STEM subjects, science, technology, education, math, but the mechanical jobs and that to me, when I heard that in college, it made me laugh. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with this new wave now of women who, if they buy into feminism, they don't see all the things that men do, and they just see men as being these walking sperm donors, and that's it, kind of.
Well, yeah, that's what they call male disposability. That's why it was women and children first on the Titanic. Men don't matter. And it goes back to biology. Well, if you want a further society, you need a lot of women to have babies. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, women can have one at most, maybe 2 twins and stuff like that. But so if you want 50 kids, then you need 50 women. But you only need 1 man. You don't need 50 men. You need 1 to have so many babies. And that's where like male disposability comes from. And they use that all the time to shame men. Like the whole Gillette ad, who, by the way, was made by a radical feminist. Just so
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, just found out. No surprise there.
Yeah, big shocker. Yeah, but like the fun thing I just want to add, like it's perfectly acceptable. Like it shows the power feminism has in society when a teenage girl in university can say, "Oh, we should get rid of all the men, and society would be better," and it's fine, and people support that. But if I were to say, if we could get rid of all the Jews, then society would be better. But then that's a problem. I'm a Nazi if I say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, double standards again.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah, and for our last section then here, we'll just look at the effects of feminism on society in general, and like what will happen if we don't start, if people don't start to wake up to this. Like look at some of the consequences here. It's obviously dividing men and women. It does things like it encourages women to prioritize their careers over having kids. I don't have a problem with that too much, but obviously bringing the biology into it, like you said, if women kind of have feminist ideas in their heads and they put their careers, they put off the idea of family too much, they might be leaving it too late. There's lots of different effects that it can have here, and so what do you think about this? What happens if it goes too far?
I think that just the oppression of men is just going to further and further and further. A lot more men's it's not going to be solved in the next 10 years. I think this whole issue of work death and suicide and men quitting school and all that. We need to address feminism and stop it for having so much social and political power. But no one wants to do that, because then you're you're marked as the bad sexist person who wants to stand in women's way. It's a huge issue, and I don't think it has any simple fix. I mean, this is leftist ideologies, and communist Russia shows you where leftist ideologies can lead. Now, I don't think we're going to lead into an oppressive regime where men are going to be put in work camp, because I don't think women are organized enough to like construct a society in which they have so much control like that. Like, that's a lot of work, and they usually leave the hard work to men. Like, but yeah, I think it's just going to get worse in the next 10, 20 years. And I think what's going to help, we need to stick to scientific understanding. There's so much pseudo-scientific ideas in feminism, like this whole idea that gender is a social construct. Like, no, like, I have a uterus, that's not a social construct. Like, a man has a penis, that's not a social construct either. Like, but I know what they mean by that. But they're mixing this little ideas. Like, for me, a social construct, like gender social construct, is the way like women have long hair, men have short hair. That's the way we socialize people into gender categories. But that's what, for me, like social gender has always been. Like, things like that. Women wear skirts, men don't. And it's like that. But now they're pushing this idea toward, no, everything about gender is wrong. We're supposed to be agender blobs of human skin, and that's all there is to it. Anything else, like, I'm a woman because the patriarchy wants me to stay in the home and have babies. It's like, oh my God, like no understanding of science. And that goes with this whole postmodernist thing, like a complete rejection of authority, a complete rejection of science too, because science hurts feelings as a non-binary person. It's So
as someone who gets easily offended will look at all the scientific books and all these professors saying to them, hey, you can't change your sex, it's not possible biologically. They'll say, don't oppress me, you're an authority figure, I shouldn't listen to you. And they'll pull out the liberal or the leftist handbook and say, oh, when someone who's authority talks to you, tries to talk some sense into you because you're dumb, you should ignore them because they're oppressing you. Yeah,
that's exactly it.
Talking about the whole solutions of this going forward, I think that will really help, because of the way a lot of feminists are programmed. They're programmed not to listen to men. And that's so effectively half of the population there is being ignored now. And I think a good way around that is for more women to get more active in kind of analysing feminism and just saying, hey, we need to look at this. And there are a lot of women who do see it for what it is. And I think that's really important. And I think we need more of that,
Oh yeah, and the fight for supporting men, like, saying society at large that men are really oppressed and socially in this way, women have the biggest voice. There's so many like MRAs women or egalitarian women just like me. Like, I don't think what I do is original or novel. I'm just following on the footstep of many other YouTubers or Twitter people or feminists, writer, novelists, and all that, women who who stand by what I stand to, that feminism is going too far. It's disenfranchising men. It's putting them in the category with rapists and murderers and all the evil of society. That's wrong, and we need to stand up to that. That's how we're going to change them, by standing up to things. It's not going to change it if nobody does anything about it. So I'm not doing much. I'm just doing my part, and I think it's important, and I'll keep doing it no matter how many angry feminists come my way and tells me to shut up because I'm wrong and stupid. It's no.
But that's it. You got to just stand up for what's right, and you got to speak up and be heard, and try to reach as many people as you can. And I think that's kind of a good point to finish this off on, and we should be optimistic, and I'll keep doing my work, you keep doing your work, and keep trying to awaken people to these like dangerous ideologies. And we just have to keep generating content and reaching as many people as we can.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've been thinking about for a very long time now. Like if you look at what Jordan Peterson's been doing, he's been helping a lot of men realizing things, finding meanings in their lives and all that. And a lot of young men go towards Peterson a lot more than young women go toward Peterson in what he says. And for me, the obvious reason is that women are offered feminism. They're offered power. So they don't need meaning and understanding. They're being corrupted by power. So that's what you want to attack. You want to be able to reason with women in a specific way that they'll understand. You can do that with men. You can get through men with logic and reasoning and understanding and facts and all that. But you can't do that with a woman. You can't work that way in the same way with a woman. And it's been very hard trying to find a way to talk to these ideologically possessed women and try to wake them up, which is an expression I don't really like, but to make them view things from a different perspective. They don't want to. The perspective they have gives them power and authority and all amazing thing that they want to have. It's selfish and all that, like we said. But so I think that's where the challenge is. That's where the challenge is now. Like, we have to keep supporting men because they sure as hell need it, and we have to help women find more reason to exist than just wanting power and being in politics and taking men's job and position and wanting to be like a man. There's more. Like, there's a real rejection of anything feminine in feminism, which is funny because, like, the biggest and most amazing feminine things women do is have children.
Yeah.
But we've been so spoiled by technological advancement that we don't see the value in having children anymore. Feminism and people at large seeing as an hindrance to wanting to have a career and a wonderful life and being social with my friends. Having children is an hindrance. And I think that's the conservative side in me. Like, we need to go back to more traditional value. We need to have women by to be mothers. Like, we need to value the roles of mothers a lot more in society than tell women, no, just put your kid in daycare and then society will figure out the rest. No. So that's where I am. Yeah, I think that's the challenge that we have nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to, like, tying into what you said there, that, feminism has done such a good job of convincing women that, you don't have children. Having children is, you're going along with the patriarchy.
Yeah,
you can achieve more than that. But from a philosophical point of view, the way I look at it, and I'm sure the feminist camp would go mental if they heard me say this, but I think that, like, being a parent is a beautiful job, and it's a great privilege that women have that men don't have. And for feminism to come along after all of these millennia of human beings being alive, for feminism, radical feminism anyway, to convince women that that's not that important, having a career in so-and-so company or working for the government or whatever, in whatever job, is more important than being a parent. I think, no, sorry, like, philosophically, from a bigger picture point of view, I don't really see how there's any one job that's more important than being a parent.
Yeah, and that's what I offer as an argument to somebody on Twitter today. Like, she asked me, why is it always men who are billionaires, who have all the money, they're at the top? Like, it's unfair. Well, it's because men can't have babies. If men could have babies, they'd do what women do. They'd be at home, wanted to take care of their babies and their families.
Great point.
But they don't. Women are born with a purpose and a role. So they don't have to figure out life in the same way that men have to. You can always fall back to, I'll just be a mother and have kids and become a stay-at-home mom, and that's perfectly acceptable. But men don't have that. Men are meant to find their own meaning for their lives and find their role in life, and where do they fit in and what does it all mean, and especially when you consider that personality-wise, men tend to be more industrious and conscientious. Well, combine that with this need of making your mark in the world. Well, that's why men are mostly billionaires over women.
Right, yeah.
They have this added drive that women do not have.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. You know, it's not an insult to women. It's just that there's differences between the two. You know, like the yin and yang symbol.
Yeah.
You know, if you imagine that white is feminine and black is masculine, you know, they work complementary and they're not supposed to be the same. And that's why the whole neo-Marxist thing that we have in the Western world now affecting all the feminism, the transgender movement and all that, it's all based on the idea of this forced equality, which is against nature.
Yeah.
And it's that's why it's causing chaos, because you've nature on one side and you've got ideology on the other side, and it's just going to cause friction and chaos.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think, you know, this has been great. It's actually, I've learned some new things and it's been great fun as well. And, you know, maybe we should do another one at some point if more stuff has happened, you know, more big events has happened, and we can kind of, you know, now that we've covered the basics, we can do another one and get into some more detail and just analyze it, because, you know, it is a big issue. It's a really big issue that affects all of us, and it needs more analysis, you know, and, you know, that's why we should do another one and kind of keep putting the message out there, basically.
Yeah, yes, totally. Yes, I think we see things very alike. So I sort of like that, instead of always being judged on Twitter and being told I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. It's a change of pace for me. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. No, that's great. That's why I'm here. No, it's good, because there's a lot of people out there who are of like mind, and this is what happens with the ideology thing, is that people who are ideologically motivated are very noisy. You know, they're very passionate and noisy, and, well, I wouldn't say passionate, they're noisy and activist, and it kind of, the rest of us are quiet, but that doesn't mean we're not switched on to what's happening. So that's why, you know, conversations like this happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, look, Judith, thank you very much for your time, and, you know, I'll do that proper introduction separately and I'll send it to you as soon as I can, but it's been absolutely awesome talking to you, so thank you for your time.
Well, thank you a lot for the opportunity. It's my first collab with another YouTuber, so thank you very much for that.
You are listening to Resolving Reality Radio. That was my interview with Canadian YouTuber Judith Charpentier. Make sure you find Judith on YouTube. Her channel is The Outsider's Perspective, and don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. This is the podcast for Resolving Reality, an independent Irish media platform. Visit our website, resolvingreality.com, for articles, podcasts, and video content. Make sure to check out episode 9. Until then, take care and enjoy Resolving Reality.